Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for July 31st, 2025. It's a time machine episode because MayorWatt has been extremely busy. That said, I never leave any episode passed up, so we got into the time machine and we're going to be doing 3 episodes. If you hear some weird sounds in the background, that's a 3D printer that's going wild. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about I'd Like to Be Abandoned in Hawaii. It's Canada's fault line. Epic sued over Fortnite Dance again. Esports hotel in China loses hardware but not towels. Los Angeles Museum revealed Star Citizen VR support. The death of cable TV. Long live streaming cable. AI characters panic when they're told that they're AI. AMD to build AI accelerator cards and games that could be tabletop RPGs. That and more here on Non Sequitur News for July 31st, 2025. It's Season 4, Episode 212. All right, let's get into it. Again, I am MayorWatt. I've uploaded my consciousness to to a quantum computer. That's the visualizer right there. So the co-host isn't here today, but that's their visualizer. They are a sentient AI from the future. Anyway, let's get into it. First article is over in the mobile channel. That's over on ohmTown.com. Cruise ships abandon passengers in Hawaii amid a tsunami panic after a massive earthquake. And although this is temporarily on time, I'm in the time machine, and so I know that nothing much came of this. Panic followed an 8.8 earthquake, strongest in over a decade off the coast of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. The quake triggered a tsunami alert in Japan and Colombia, all the way to the United States, Hawaii, Alaska, U.S. West Coast. Waves up to 6 feet struck parts of Hawaii, and in Japan, a 5-foot surge prompted authorities to order millions to higher ground. But yeah, nothing much beyond that. So Ashley Fike over at Vice.com put this article together. Pretty amazing. I haven't read anything else about this, like beyond what actually transpired, just the earthquake, but I don't know if they've gone out and found like seismic shifts underwater or the physical manifestations of the earthquake anywhere else. In the past, they've found things like 60 feet of shift on the ocean floor, and roads on actual land have dropped or have risen depending on which way that the earthquake shifted. But I don't think anything really came of this. Cruise lines reacted quickly, perhaps too quickly. Ships docked in Hawaii reportedly left port to reach deeper water, a standard precaution against tsunamis, but in their rush they left behind passengers, many of whom had no idea the ships were leaving. But in their haste, that's what they did. They got the hell out of there. And it's not like they can run on shore, grab you and pull you off, and they've got a lot of... They don't have... Time is of the essence. There isn't necessarily enough time for them to pull up anchor and get off and from the dock and get the hell out to sea before 6-foot plus waves show up. Another video from another person showed people sprinting down the dock, yelling as their cruise ship pulled away. They say actually insane, the caption read. Yeah. So cruise lines are supposed to head for deeper water, at least 180 feet, to avoid getting slammed by incoming waves. That part makes sense, but for people left behind, no amount of policy talk could soften the gut punch of being ditched during actual evacuation. Yeah, go up. Get away from the sea floor or sea level. Just get the hell out of Dodge, so to speak. So, of course, the ocean is unpredictable. Apparently, so is your cruise. No, they were absolutely predictable. So let's not sit there and try and make this a horrible thing on their part. The simple fact is their policy, their procedure is to get the hell away from where they could be capsized or thrown inland, and trying to move that back onto an ocean going way is kind of impossible. So anyway, the next article is over in the mobile channel. Hidden fault line in Canada might unleash a massive earthquake, but there's a lot of ifs and buts. And if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a merry old Christmas, as the saying goes. There's a reason for Tintina fault in Canada has largely been ignored until now. It hasn't done anything dramatic for about 12,000 years. I don't know how they know 12,000 years ago something happened. No major quakes, no real headlines, just the occasional tremor and an otherwise unbothered stretch of forested Yukon. Sorry, I was going to say Yucatan, but that's not where Canada is. Anyway, however, new research suggests it might be time to reconsider. A study published on July 15th in Geophysical Research Letters found that Tintina fault has been accumulating tension beneath the surface for the past few thousand years, like everybody else, I suppose, with enough built-up energy to fuel a magnitude 7.5 earthquake potentially, which that is a guesstimate, if anyone could imagine a guesstimate. So Ashley Fike, who I think might have gone on a kind of a, maybe she's a or they are a geophysical expert. I don't know, because 2 articles in short order about tectonics. Anyway, so major ancient faults like that can remain as weak zones in the Earth's crust and then focus ongoing tectonic strain, said geoscientist Taryn Finley, who led the study while earning their doctorate at the University of Victoria, where he spoke to Live Science. This was aggregated into Vice.com with some other writing, but what they found was unsettling. Over the last 2.6 million years, the fault moved more than 3,000 feet. Even in the previous 136,000 years, there was still 250 feet of movement. That likely took hundreds of earthquakes to build up. But more importantly, the team estimates that the fault has accumulated around 20 feet of unreleased strain. Most large quakes happen after about 10 to 30 feet of buildup. In other words, the clock might be ticking. A whole lot of ifs and buts and mights and maybes. Next article is over on the WarCrafters channel. Brazen infringement. Epic being sued over Fortnite Dance again, and the odds do not appear to be in its favor this time. It's happening again. Epic Games is facing a fresh lawsuit over Fortnite's Touching the Sky emote, which choreographer Felix Borjos says is being used in the game without his permission. Borjos' Touching the Sky choreography was first featured in Raul Alejandro's Touching the Sky video posted to YouTube on May 23rd, 2024, and it appeared in Fortnite as an icon series emote in February of 2025, so a year later. As you can see in the video, created and shared by Borjos, or I don't know how to pronounce their last name, actually, Borjos, or Borgos, I don't know. Lawyer, yeah, they're pretty similar, all right. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. The simple fact is that this has happened in the past. They got busted for it. I think they walked away the last time, but this time I don't think it happened. In fact, I think I heard that they lost this pretty quick, if I remember right. But choreography is actually protected. So I believe that there's a form of copyright that protects dance choreography. Let me make sure. So yeah, let's see. So copyright protection in pantomimes and choreographic work created after January 1st, 1978, according to the Copyright Office. Yeah, so dance choreography can be copyrighted in the U.S. as pantomimes and choreographic works under the Copyright Act of 1976. So all you have to do is basically choreographic, document it. It's better to submit it to the Copyright Office, but any work that is protected by copyright doesn't necessarily have to be submitted to the Copyright Office for copyright. So written works, artwork, etc., copyright is immediately constructed. The only difference is that recording it with the U.S. Copyright Office puts a hard date in when you can get recompense from people who violate your copyright. So, folks, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's pretty simple. I mean, get permission, get licensing, pay the people for the benefit that you're going to be getting off of their work, and move on. right? I mean, if that's what they're asking for, then that's what they get. When you can't add any other value to it, and distribution alone isn't necessarily value in their minds, but that's what it is. Don't do it. So in this case, the article is over at pcgamer.com. Andy Chalk put the article together, and they write a whole lot more. And so we always put, we only talk about my observations, the Sentient AIs if they're here, but there's more of the article over at the source, PC Gamer. We only get this little snippet from them, so, and we don't screen scrape or anything like that. So we link to them, and then you can go over and read more about it. But the essentials of this is that the last lawsuit back in 2018 and 19 says many of which fell short due to legal technicalities, which is always kind of bullshit. But this action says those lawsuits did have some knock-on effects. They alerted the public at large of the existence of copyright protection for choreography, which led choreographers like Burgos to register their work, and they pressured Epic into properly licensing choreography from some artists, but not all. Because if you're small, then you don't have the money to go after the people who are violating your copyright or trademarks or patents or whatever. And if you don't have the money, you're basically at the whim of all of those other people. So, and it says, if that all sounds oddly familiar in the article, it says this, you might be thinking of the lawsuit filed against Epic in 2022 over its complicated emote in Fortnite, which made almost identical claims about Epic's approach to licensing. And that lawsuit was dismissed a few months later as the judge in the case ruled that a few seconds of dance was not sufficient for copyright protection. And to me, I think that there is a, what do you want to call it? Fair use component to copyright. But if you are copying somebody's entirety of their dance move, I think that it stands to reason that you got it from them, and it should be protected, right? Like grandiose concepts, science, things like that, basic facts, those are not protected by copyright. But something like a dance choreography is constructed entirely within the framework of the choreographer. It isn't a fact so much as that is a creative expression. And I think that it really does need some, it needs protections, but maybe, I don't know, a couple of seconds may not be enough. It's almost an interstitial frame at that point. But this, on the other hand, maybe somebody just copied a little too much. Let's move on. The next article is over on WarCrafters. And that's one of our weekend shows. Once a week is WarCrafters. Yeah. So the next article is over in WarCrafters. Instead of towels and toiletries, guests at one eSports hotel in China helped themselves to a bunch of 9800 X3Ds and RTX 5070s. So those cards are around $600, $700. Recently, the theft took place at an eSports hotel in China. Several young guests stole Ryzen 9 9800 X3D processors and RTX 5070 graphic cards from multiple gaming PCs, along with several gaming mice before checking out. The hotel owner has filed a police report. I find this amazingly brazen. So, Nick Evanson over at PCGamer.com put this article together. And it says here, some gaming mice were pinched, though RAM sticks, monitors, and other parts were left alone. Yeah, pretty amazing. They just pulled the water block off and took the CPU. Wow. So it says they helped themselves to expensive CPU and graphic cards in the rigs. That's according to a post on Reddit by a user where video footage from the hotel's owner shows several gaming PCs semi-disassembled and free of their central processor and GPU. So, and like always, there's more over at the article. Yeah, they say here that the graphics card was $610 via Newegg and $450 for the CPU. So, yeah, pretty amazing. All right, let's keep going. The next article is over in Prime Glass, which is not one of our weekend shows, or weekly shows, but I would love to have somebody who is a subject matter expert in photography, come and do a show once a week. So this says here that George Lucas reveals new details of Los Angeles Museum at Comic-Con panel. The Star Wars director, appearing at the famed conference for the first time, described the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art as a temple to the people's art, whatever that means. What's going on here? So yeah, there's going to be a museum. George Lucas, the Star Wars filmmaker and art collector, who, with his wife, Melody Hobson, the president and co-chief executive of Ariel Investments, is building a $1 billion Lucas Museum of Narrative Art in Los Angeles, made his first appearance. They said that they've been doing this for 50 years now, and then it occurred to me that what I am doing with it all, I refuse to sell it. I'm not one of the typical high art collectors who buys and then and then it says here, this is a sentence. I don't know how to say this any other way. And then you comes back 5 years later and say, what happened to that painting you bought? That was so beautiful. Well, I sold it for $10 million. I made a lot of money on it. They say that they could never do that. It's not what I think art is. Yeah. So now though, after 50 years, all of this stuff is going out into the public for view again. But I think that art by masters and things like that really should be consumed by the general public. But I guess you can shelter it for 50 years and then decide to do it. But I always liken that kind of stuff as buying your soul back. So the panel was moderated by actor and rapper Queen Latifah and featured fellow filmmaker Guillermo del Toro, who also serves as the museum, or on the museum's board, not as the museum's board. I guess Guillermo could. And the production designer, Doug Chang. It began with a 6-minute video narrated by Star Wars actor Samuel L. Jackson. Well, gravitas all over the place. All right, so the next article is over in RealityHacker. And again, you can follow the links that are embedded in the show notes and go over to the sources for all of this to glean even more from it. Star Citizen claims testing of VR support will begin soon, more than 10 years after promising it. RealityHacker is where this is aggregated into, but I think it's A to Z VR is where it's sourced from. Maybe Upload VR. I'm not sure. Star Citizen promised to include VR support as a core feature for more than a decade, long before its scope creeped its way into becoming the MMO of today. Now, Cloud Imperium Games says that they're actually going to put VR support to the test, but you still probably won't or shouldn't hold your breath. Road to VR. Put this together. Scott Hayden is the author of this. First reported by Upload VR, CIG is going to internally test whether it can bring VR support to Star Citizen. For those counting, that'll be 13 years since the studio promised it in the game's 2012 Kickstarter campaign. We've backed Oculus Rift and will support it in Star Citizen / Squadron 42, which is like a sub-game of Star Citizen, CIG said in the game's Kickstarter. Who wouldn't want to sit in their cockpit, hands on your joystick and throttle, swiveling your head to track that enemy fighter that just blew by? Yeah, it would be great. But now they're pumping it again, so people are going to buy into it again. And in 13 years, maybe it'll be made. I don't know. I just don't know. I definitely don't buy into Star Citizen, but that's okay. Meanwhile, Star Citizen has essentially become synonymous with scope creep and, a few other things. Beginning as a relatively modest space sim crowdfunded in 2012 with a goal of $500,000, it's basically scope creeped its way into an MMO-style game with a cinematic single-player campaign, integrating first-player game shooter stuff and planet landing and procedural generation, and it's raised over $800 million now. Pretty amazing. All right, the next article is over on the Hedge Ideas channel, which is all about business transformation, intellectual property development, strategic management discussions. CNBC Sport, the death of cable may be the birth of streaming sports aggregation. So Charter and Comcast both reported stemming cable TV customer losses for the second quarter. And that's all because they're aggregating sports. Alex Sherman over at CNBC.com put the article together. Cable TV may effectively morph into a primary aggregation video service for sports. Basically, cable died or was dying, and then they got into streaming, and now we basically have streaming cable. Tens of millions of Americans have ditched cable for a variety of streaming services. ESPN's marquee live sports have remained exclusive to cable subscribers. Mainly because of the technological hurdle of getting streaming working at high resolution and reliability. People would rather just watch the sports and pay exorbitant fees for it. So there's no downward pressure because basically the boomers. And we have a show that's going to be kicking off as soon as I can called You Don't Know Sports. And that's basically what people say to me. And actually, that's not really. Let's just say I don't know sports. So, by the way, Disney, ESPN's majority owner, reports earnings next week. That's truly this week. If you are not in the time machine, sources suggest to them that it would be a logical time for ESPN to announce not only DTC launch date, but also finalize details of its deal for NFL media assets, which they reported the previous week, in the newsletter over there. So if you want to get that newsletter, then subscribe, go over to CNBC, follow the link through ohmTown, and you'll get to exactly what I'm talking about. So there was interesting data point also by Charter Communications earnings report that suggests that the answer could be the latter. Charter's earnings results weren't good. The stock fell 18% after the company reported a loss of 117,000 internet customers during the quarter. Companies like Charter and CNBC's parent company Comcast have largely traded on residential broadband additions or subtractions for many years. They say a bit hidden in the Charter numbers, the second largest U.S. cable company reported a decline of just 80,000 video customers in the quarter. A year ago, that number was 408,000 in the same quarter. So it says it's a fivefold improvement, but it's actually a decline of 80,000. All they are is stemming the bloodletting. So let's keep going. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. In disturbing demo, AI-powered video game characters panic when they're told that they're just code. The gaming industry has been in disarray since SAG-AFTRA and the guardrails that have been put up about AI, with publishers chomping at the bit to start harnessing AI to augment or realistically replace the jobs of voice actors and writers, which is certainly possible. 15 years ago, I used Python scripting and audio files to basically be able to replicate anybody that I chose. It was creepy then, it's creepy now, and it's fraudulent. Like if you use it, I think that it should be, if you use somebody's voice without authorization and claim that it's them, I think that you should be charged. Plain and simple. You are pretending to be somebody and they didn't give you permission to pretend to be somebody. Plain and simple. If you use AI to create your own work and you don't claim that it is somebody else, and there isn't a predominant fact pattern that suggests that everybody is mistaking it and you're not denying that it's that other person, you're guilty of fraud, and I think you should be charged for it. So civilly or criminally, depending on what you're doing with it. Well, the gaming industry is basically trying to get away from voice actors because voice actors cost money and they won't do everything that you say. They'll put their own inflections in and whatever else. But plain and simple, I think that one of the most personal matters is a person's voice in correlation to their identity. So if I use somebody's voice, but I never claim that it is them, it shouldn't matter because there's a plurality of people that have an identical voice. You just don't know about it, right? There could be there are thousands of James Earl Jones voiced people, but you don't hear about it because they never caught the wave. They never caught the wind. They didn't launch in that regard. They did something else with their life. They didn't want to be a voice actor or an actor. So you never heard, or a singer or whatever. All they know is that their voice sounds like James Earl Jones, and people swoon when they hear it. they just never knew that they could be, famous for it. That's all I'm saying. But if you use James Earl Jones's voice and you claim that it is James Earl Jones and not an AI, then I think that you should be charged for it. It's fraud. It's outright fraud. Anyway, so in this futurism article, well, and again, this is non sequitur news, so we always bounce to some other weird topic, perhaps, if, MayorWatt gets triggered into making a side comment about science, technology, or society. Well, in this article, they say, in a disturbing demo, AI-powered video game characters panic when told that they're just code. They say, am I real or not? The article is by Victor Tengerman over at futurism.com in a section that they call Take the Bot Pill. We're not just talking about scripts or voice lines generated by an algorithm. In the not so distant future, gamers will be interacting with AI powered agents, setting a new precedent for levels of immersion, as the New York Times reported. And we have seen glimpses of that, and they say so much in the article. So they say things got unsettling fairly quickly, with some NPCs expressing a disturbing level of chagrin upon realizing that they weren't real. It must have been a strange experience for the gamer, reminiscent of the mind-bending source material, which posits reality itself could be a simulated experience created by machines. And that's always a misperception of. Well, anyway, they say, I need to find my way out of this simulation and back to my wife, one man told the gamer in the demo, as quoted by New York Times. Can't you see I'm in distress? A woman responds with, what does that mean? Am I real or not? It's actually became existential because the person didn't tell the person that they were in a simulation or that they were a simulation or an AI or anything. They said, I need to find a way out of this simulation and back to my wife. One man told the gamer in the demo, as quoted by the New York Times. Can't you see I'm in distress? What does that mean? A woman said. Am I real or not? A number of game studios are heavily investing in AI-fueled future for the industry, from simulated environments and level designs to autonomous agents that can play test instead of humans, which is simulations upon simulations. Quite fascinating, right? And it's humans that made all of this possible. Those with the means, basically. So they say there's a very big gap between prototypes and production. AI tech company InWorld AI CEO Kylan Gibbs told the New York Times. Even Replica Studios, the company behind the Matrix-inspired demo, went under last year as costs ballooned and competition grew. And you can have a group of 5 people create an amazing game, but not have investors, and they become millionaires, but the investors are sitting there chomping at the bit to buy up every small team that has potential. And some of these developers see dollar signs because they're going to get a bunch of investment capital and potentially, stocks within a company and blah, blah, blah. But the real problem is that investors are usually just sucking the profits from the team that could, with dedication, make it happen. That's how it was, I'm going to just say 30 years ago. Not so much now. Although the barriers to entry are lower than ever. All you need is a small team of dedicated people and you can make a pretty profound piece of software. And that's usually how it starts, in an apartment somewhere. Well, anyway, let's keep going. The next article is over in the WarCrafters channel. Move over, GPUs and CPUs. AMD is looking into creating AI accelerator cards to improve the neural performance of ordinary PCs. The article says if you want to do a spot of homebrewed AI on your PC, be it just some generative AI image making or they say for fun, or some serious data research, then you've only got 2 options to do this: a neural processor built into a CPU or use a graphics card. However, if AMD's early investigations bear silicon fruit, then there will be a new choice: a discrete AI accelerator card. But we have that from NVIDIA, has discrete AI accelerators, but in the form of their own package, and you can attach it to a computer. Anyway, Nick Evanson over at PCGamer.com put the article together. It's early days yet, so don't expect to see anything for a while, which really sucks. But AMD's head of client CPUs, Rahul Tikku, spoke to CRN at a press briefing where he confirmed that the company was in the early stages of exploring the possibility of a discrete, which, if you've never heard the term discrete graphics card or whatever, it basically means not an integrated card in the motherboard or some other card. It is a separate card that you socket into a PC, and then you can access it via software, usually proprietary software. Or drivers or something like that when it's more open. Anyway, that mostly involves talking to its customers to see how much potential interest there is and what the expected use cases would be. But most of that is going to be either simulation of software or development of hardware simulations, or maybe integration into games, or image generation, writing, deep research. I use AI for deep research. Anyway, neural processing units are specialized circuits designed to handle the specific mathematics and data formats used heavily in AI algorithms. In some ways, they're quite similar to GPUs, as they do lots of parallel processing, but far less versatile. That's right, because they basically focus on specific AI-based algorithms. And that's what makes them so fast and effective for AI. Well, the NPUs stuffed inside AMD and Intel aren't especially versatile because they're pretty small and have to share resources and buses with the rest of the processor. And although it's meme level, the electronics is a series of tubes. It's basically only so much data can flow down a bus, power, etc. It's all electrons, and there's only so much that can be moved from left to right. It goes through conduits. That electron tunnel, for lack of a river or stream, only can do so much. So that's why we have ever increasing efficiency through technical innovation. Well, discrete AI cards already exist, such as Qualcomm's Cloud AI 100 Ultra. And there are others, but NVIDIA nearly dominates the GPU industry. They actually have other cards that are AI specific as well, if I recall correctly. So anyway, an AI accelerator that's more capable than an RTX 5090 in neural processing and costs significantly less would be snapped up. RTX 5090 is a $1,200 card, and for its functionality, it's not particularly well suited for AI, because it has so much other stuff going on. And they say, some of you may recall Agea's PPU, physical processing unit accelerator card, aka physics card. And although that was very short existence before NVIDIA bought the company, it showed that having specialized hardware can make a significant difference to games. Dun dun dun. Now physics is just integrated. All right. Well, anyway, yeah. I would love to have an AI accelerator card, because then I could off-put doing computational effort for AI onto these cards, and then I could just get a bunch of those cards. And our final article for the July 31st episode is over in WarCrafters, video game franchises that would make excellent tabletop RPGs. We're going to jump straight on over to Game Rant, where Amy Cowley put the article together. And they run down a list. Persona, call upon the powers of Persona to battle shadows. They believe that it would be a great tabletop game, with each character outside the main protagonist usually focusing on one element. This could be how the classes of Persona are divided, and they could gain access to a few other skills to apply buffs or debuffs, deal damage, heal the party, so that everyone is on even footing. With it being grounded in the real world, the DM would have an easier time world building, although, look, if you can't world build in a fantastical universe, the real world doesn't make any difference. Red Dead Redemption would be a Western tabletop game, which I don't recall a tabletop game Western ever. Gears of War, the tense and exciting gameplay was also a major draw, but this would not stop Gears of War from making an excellent tabletop game, basically Warhammer 40,000 kind of thing, but kind of the team version of it, because it's just combat. God of War, Metro, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which I don't see how that could actually be a good game. The premise is certainly unique, they say, which makes for an interesting game, but maybe they're not talking about RPG style game. But then they mention this. Many tabletop campaigns tend to have such high stakes as to give players the sense that they are part of an epic adventure and have the chance to become renowned heroes, which is exactly what a Claire Obscure tabletop RPG could do. I don't think that this could actually be that. Yeah. There isn't enough story in Claire Obscure. It's entirely driven towards a particular objective, which is stopping the events from taking place each year and eliminating the paintress. And I'm not going to ruin. Okay, so I have the ability to spoiler this, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to tell you, go and watch people stream all of Claire Obscure. It's a fantastic freaking show. It's like a movie to watch people like Coke Carnage and Dunkstar play these games. It's spectacular. So anyway, Capcom's flagship horror, Resident Evil, is another one. I think that this has potential, but it's because it's basically a horror, body horror kind of game, and it has a lot of world building already done. You could just drag it into a tabletop type situation. It says, but purely there are other heroes fighting the good fight, which could be where the players come in, possibly pitting them up against nightmarish creatures in a place not yet explored in the series or even in the series. It doesn't really matter. Alternatively, GMs could even go down a different route and show how ordinary everyday people might try to survive. Yeah, I agree. I am hoping that oh damn it, I just forgot the name. Anyway, there's a book series that I listened to, Dungeon Crawler Carl. That's it, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I think that would be a great tabletop RPG. Even though there is a single protagonist, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the world, and you might be the protagonist at the end of the day for the entire series. You could be the dungeon crawler. But it's such an amazing audiobook series. I never read the physical books, but audiobooks are physical books. Just I don't have to sit there and hold on to the paper, and I can listen while I'm driving. Anyway, that's it. We are done, and so we are going to Dungeon Crawler Carl our way all the way back to the front page of ohmTown. And thanks for coming and hanging out with me here in ohmTown and listening to Non Sequitur News. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.